I'd like to first of all acknowledge my presence and what a privilege it is to be on unceded Coast Salish territory here tonight in a room full of such amazing people. This is a big day today. I think we may look back 5-10 years from now and see this as a turning point in this issue of this confluence of issues, fracking and LNG and Site C dam and all these things. We've had so much attention on the Enbridge pipeline issue, justifiably so, but as that enters another phase, here's hoping that it's a positive one for where a lot of people in this room would like to see that go. I hope that with all the attention today on the media, I was at the conference today filming, and I'm going to show you a little bit of that because I'd like you to see what the other folks are saying here today about this issue. But it's just terrific to see such a packed room full of such amazing people, and I hope that with this collective energy we'll move forward in a positive direction and start giving this set of issues the kind of attention that they deserve. Because in terms of climate and water impacts, they're 10, 15, 20 times bigger than the Enbridge pipeline, even bigger than the Alberta oil sands, tar sands, whatever you choose to call it. That sounds maybe far-fetched, but hopefully over the next 10 minutes here, you'll come to see, if you don't already realize that, you'll come to see why that is. I'd like to start off by just playing a clip here. I just threw this together as quickly as I could today because I thought it was really important that you hear what sometimes these $750 conferences are, you know, there's a closed door kind of attitude at them, and it's people in the same circle speaking to themselves, and they often speak in a very different way than they would publicly, and the kind of messaging that we hear in election cycles and things, is kind of on steroids. And one of the things that has just really struck me today is the total lack of science, of data, of real fundamental economic wisdom. There's just an incredible sort of Rich Coleman, the minister of hot air, as I've come to call him. There's a kind of revival preacher element here. It's kind of like being at a seance or something, and it's, if we believe hard enough in these things, then they'll come to bear. So what I'm going to try to offer here, just in the 10 minutes I have, is a sort of fact-based counterpoint, drawing on the top of geoscientists and biologists and climate scientists. And so this first clip, I just juxtaposed here. I was at Cornell University. I want to acknowledge my filmmaking partner here, Fiona Rare, who's up front here getting some footage here tonight. My life partner, my lovely fiance Amelia, is here as well. And the subject of our film, and our brother Caleb is here in the audience as well. I'm going to play a clip of that in a moment. So you can see what the on-the-ground implications look like for the people who are, and maybe just add a little visual element to what Chief Logan showed us there earlier about what's going to happen upstream from this. But this, I've just juxtaposed this with, we spoke to arguably the top climate scientist on the issue of shale gas and the implications of particularly escaped or fugitive methane emissions, and how that completely skews all these models of what can be fairly characterized as clean, or not fairly characterized as clean LNG, and the statement that Premier Clark made. If we could just bring the lights down, is that possible? Just up here?
It's over there in the corner.
Oh, there we go. Coming up? Okay, here we go.
LNG is one of the fastest growing sources of energy in the world. It's also a chance for us to help the world transition to the cleanest fossil fuel on the planet.
Please join us in welcoming to the stage Premier of British Columbia, the Honourable Christy Clark.
We have so much work to do together, so much ahead of us, with a generational opportunity to build an LNG industry for not just our province, but for our country. And this really is, for us, all about building a nation, creating jobs, rolling up our sleeves to take advantage of this generational opportunity to build a prosperous future for every Canadian. But it is more than just about Canada. This is about our opportunity to make the biggest change and the biggest contribution we ever have as a province to reducing greenhouse gas emissions around the globe. By powering up the economies of Asia and helping them move to the cleanest fossil fuel on the planet, move away from dirtier fuels, cleaning up the air there and cleaning up the air here as well.
The natural gas industry and many politicians like to promote shale gas and natural gas generally as a bridge fuel that allows society to continue to use fossil fuels and yet puts out less carbon dioxide than, say, coal or oil. It's true that less carbon dioxide is emitted, but shale gas in particular, natural gas in general, emit huge quantities of methane. And methane is such a powerful greenhouse gas that when you look at the cumulative impact of these greenhouse gas emissions, natural gas, and particularly shale gas, is the worst of the fossil fuels. Premier has their facts around. Our research suggests that at least 3.5% of the gas that's developed in the shale gas formations emitted to the atmosphere is methane, possibly up to 8% or more. There's increasing science saying that at least 5-6% of shale gas is going off. When you look at it, say it's 86 times worse than carbon dioxide in terms of its greenhouse gas emissions. It's disastrous to use this as a fuel. And using an LNG is probably the worst way to use it as well, because it takes a tremendous amount of energy to liquefy the gas to LNG. So a lot further methane emissions associated with transporting and storing the fuel.
So there you have two very different visions. Now this is a man whose research is the International Panel on Climate Change uses as gospel. They've just come out with a new paper at Cornell just reaffirming this research. And you just heard it from him. He characterized it, I think correctly, not as clean, but as the single worst commercially available fossil fuel ever invented. That's what I'm going to call it. And I'm going to back that up here in a second. But the other thing I'd like to talk about here is, and show you, is the disconnect that we have between, and other speakers have spoken to this, where this fuel source is going to come from. LNG is talked about and viewed in a silo as though we don't know where it came from. The fact that we're going to have 5 times as much fracking as we've had up until just recently in order to supply this industry is completely left out of the conversation. And so is the cultural and spiritual and lifestyle impacts on the ground, the segmentation of the landscape, the toxins, the effect on hunting, traditional fishing and hunting practices, and all these sorts of things that Indigenous peoples in these territories who have already paid a very heavy price to fuel this province and our economy for years are going to have to pay. So I'd just like to show a little 3-minute clip from our film, Fractured Land here. This is based on a trip that we took up to this was Fort Nelson, Echo-Dene territory in the Horn River Basin last summer with Caleb and his family.
Hunting in the culture that I grew up in was family oriented. My grandfathers and many of my uncles and aunties are amazing hunters. It permeates our culture. We are a harvesting people as I learned it. What it is can't be distilled easily. It is like church and prayer and journey and economy and sovereign obligation and joyous pastime and communion with your ancestors in a worldview that's under attack. Pulling the trigger takes a split second. But all of this, which also has to be done to show respect to the animal, this is equally, if not more important, and it takes way longer. It requires way more skill.
Put it over there beside the big tree.
See the parts that Grandma did, they're real clean. And the parts that I did, they're still fat and stuff. She's 83 years old, put me to shame. 69.
69.
Your biggest was 83?
82.
82.
long way to go.
I'll keep looking.
Yeah. I like caribou meat, but since the chemical and stuff, just an idea, I don't like that meat anymore. I just don't crave for it anymore.
Right before we left, we were using this infrared camera to try and figure out the stuff that you can't see with the eye. We're showing Grandpa.
This is the plant up the road. That's not a fire. That's gas and heat escaping that you can't see with the naked eye. I can check it out.
He said that it gives him hope and it gives him peace as he faces his death, knowing that his legacy and our people are in good hands. And there's no greater honor or responsibility for a young man than to hear that from your father, your grandfather. My grandpa said it from me.
So that's the human face of LNG. Every time you hear those initials, think of these people. Think of the toxic injection site right at the mouth of Caleb's grandfather's trap line that he's maintained for 80 years since he was 9 years old. And the fact that he can't eat his traditional foods anymore. I'm just going to, I've got about probably 4 minutes left here. I'm going to buzz here 2. Okay. I think there's only maybe one thing here that hasn't been covered by other presenters in terms of these impacts. So I would like to just, it's at the start here. So David Hughes is the former top geologist for the federal government, the Geological Survey of Canada. He ran the federal government's National Shale Gas Potential Review. He's now retired and thankfully is independently researching, doing the best research, not just here in Canada, but even in the United States. He's advising the European Commission, major global banks on shale gas policies. And he has studied the actual data based on the first 5 or 10 years of this experiment, wellhead production data, and has painted a very different picture geologically than what we're being told about this industry. And he says that in order to fill those multiple pipelines and the 5 plants that this government is committed to build by 2021, that we would need 50,000 new fracked wells in BC. One of the reasons, and that's about twice, a little more than twice as many, or a little less than twice as many as we've had in the entire 60-year history of this industry. One of the reasons, so this is what it looks like in Texas right now. This is Caleb's territory, the Horn River, this is Liz's territory. Why are we going to need all these wells? We make about 4 billion cubic feet a day of gas today. We use about half of that and export the rest to Alberta and the US. The National Energy Board has already licensed 14 billion cubic feet a day of gas. So that's 3.5 times as much as we produce today in BC. Here's some of the licenses that they've given out. Almost all this new gas today is coming from fracking. The conventional stuff is gone pretty much. This is our production here in Canada. If it wasn't for BC, we would already be plummeting here in Canada. We're propping up the national, and we're just flatlined. And there's what it takes to get up to 14 billion. That's the ramping up that's going to be required. The other thing is, these wells don't behave like conventional gas wells. They drop off in production very quickly. They have the average 3-year decline rate. That means how much the gas production volume has decreased in 3-year time from one of these wells is 69%. In the States, of the top big 5 plays, it's 84%. That means you have to keep fracking more and more holes just to keep up with production, let alone expand. We will have to double the entire gas production in this country on the shoulders of BC, on the shoulders of people in Caleb's territory, where my family lives as well in the Peace Valley, and lost our ranch for the first big dam up there. So this is going to be very real, and we're going to carry this burden if we're serious about this. Some of these other issues we've already talked about. The water thing is huge, and I'm just going to leave, I think, off on an animation here. So with that 5 times as much fracking is 5 times as much water use, roughly speaking. Sure, they made a few improvements here and there, but it's still they're pig on water, this industry, and all sorts of known carcinogens that go into that water. Just last year, we used 10.8 billion liters of fresh water pulled out of the northern boreal muskeg in rivers and lakes and streams. So imagine that going up to 50 billion a year in perpetuity. This government just said today, last time I heard Rich Coleman, he said it was going to be 85 years. We have enough, we're going to run this industry for. Today it went up to 150. 150 years. Now that's lunacy. The geology is not there. We've got about, Mr. Hughes says we could do this volume for 7 years and we'd run out of gas. So there's a huge disconnect. There's a lot of snake oil being sold here to investors around the world. But you know, if we take them at their word to some degree, that's what it's going to look like. It's going to be the water and the climate issues. We're going to double or triple our carbon footprint in this province from this industry. And this is water, the proliferation of water use in Liz and Caleb's territory, the Horn River Basin, Fort Nelson territory. And you can see how it just exploded in the last couple of years. This is in 2011, we're getting into 2012 now. Now just take that and just multiply it exponentially into as far into the foreseeable future as you can imagine. And that's just a glimpse of what making this industry real looks like in British Columbia and for the whole planet. So I think I'll leave it off there. And our film will be coming out, we'll be finished in the fall, and stay tuned to us on Facebook, Fractured Land, for when we're going to have an opportunity to see it, because we will be touring it and screening as many places as we can across Canada and around the world, and we'd love to share that with you. Thank you.